let's talk about a moment we've all been in. It's a moment of profound interpersonal friction, the kind of moment that requires one party to step outside themselves and acknowledge a shared painful reality. Maybe you're the one on the receiving end, or maybe if we're being really honest, you're the one standing on the other side of the conversation. It's the moment of truth. A disagreement has happened. A line has been crossed. A failure has occurred. There's friction, and the air is thick with the need for one simple word. You are waiting for it, the single human admission that signals a return to shared reality, to safety, and to the possibility of repair. But it never comes. Instead, you watch the subtle shift in the person across from you. The tightening around the eyes, the slight cold withdrawal. They start to talk about the context or the timing or how you misunderstood the intention. They double down on a technicality. They use a dense fog of logic to obscure a simple emotional truth. They do everything but utter that one word, sorry. And the quiet, unsettling realization dawns. This person would rather dismantle the entire relationship brick by brick than admit a single flaw. Let me ask you this, why is that word so dangerous? Because for some people, the word sorry is not a social tool. It is not a temporary admission of error. It is perceived deep down as a confession of existential fault. It feels like a moment of total self-erasure. For them, saying I was wrong doesn't mean I made a mistake. It means I am disposable. Deeply rooted fear doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from a childhood lesson that was taught without words. It is a lesson rooted in the deepest, most primal fear of the human psyche, abandonment. When they were young, admitting fault may have led to catastrophic consequences. Maybe it was harsh shaming. Maybe it was the cold withdrawal of love and attention. Perhaps they were punished not for the mistake itself, but for the act of being imperfect. Maybe they were told, implicitly or explicitly, that love was conditional on their performance, their competence, or their ability to always be right. The lesson they learned was simple, brutal, and non-conscious. Imperfection is not tolerated. If I am flawed, I will be cast out. And so their self-worth became like a glass structure built on shaky ground, a brittle ego. It looks perfect, it looks strong, but it is so fragile that it cannot absorb the slightest blow of error without threatening to shatter. To accept a flaw is to introduce a crack into the foundation of their entire identity. For them, the apology is not merely a social inconvenience. It is the psychological equivalent of signing a self-execution order. They genuinely believe that if they admit fault, the entire fragile structure of their identity, the I am competent, I am safe identity, will collapse, leaving them worthless and utterly abandoned. They are not protecting their pride. They are protecting their very right to exist. They are still that terrified child, standing alone, trying desperately to prove they are worthy of staying. This childhood lesson creates a set of complex, isolating behaviors in adulthood. We see the walls of that psychological fortress everywhere. When they are confronted with an error, they don't feel guilt, which is the healthy feeling that says, I did a bad thing. Instead, they feel shame, which is the toxic feeling that says, I am a bad person. And to avoid that shame, they immediately step out of the emotional reality of the situation and engage in a series of powerful defense mechanisms. The first wall they build is logic. They become brilliant at intellectualizing. They dissect the mistake, not to understand their role, but to shift the blame to external factors, the timing, the context, the miscommunication. They will argue the semantics of the word intention. They will create a dense philosophical argument about why, technically, the outcome was inevitable and therefore not their fault. They use logic to create a dense smokescreen around their responsibility, turning the emotional issue into a purely technical one. They are trying to prove that the mistake was not a failure of character, but a failure of circumstance. This keeps their ego intact, but it leaves the relationship raw and unresolved. Because they cannot hold the feeling of being wrong, they must expel it. They turn the tables. They project the fault onto you, the person demanding the apology. Their refusal to apologize transforms into an accusation. You are being unreasonable by demanding this. You are too sensitive. You are trying to control me. They adopt a posture of victimhood, turning the whole situation around so that they are the wrong party. And your need for a simple apology is the final unjust injury. This is a powerful psychological maneuver. By making you the villain, they not only avoid the shame of their mistake, but they also gain the moral high ground, reinforcing their narrative that the world is inherently unfair and that they are constantly under attack. This rigid defense mechanism has a terrible internal cost. It prevents personal growth. Regret is the painful acknowledgement that drives fundamental character transformation. If a mistake is instantly reframed as a lesson, you only change the surface level behavior. You learn to avoid that specific situation. But if a mistake is a source of profound human regret, you change the person who made the mistake. The unapologetic person is constantly iterating, but they are never fundamentally transforming. They repeat the same core patterns with different variables, because the deep emotional root of the error was never allowed to be felt, mourned, and addressed. They are stuck in a relentless loop of defending a flawed self rather than building a better one. Every unsaid apology is like an emotional debt they refuse to pay. This debt doesn't vanish, it accumulates. It creates a heavy, unseen pressure in the relationship. The other person, you, is forced to carry the weight of their error, while the unapologetic person feels an increasing, yet unacknowledged resentment toward the person whose existence threatens their fragile perfection. This is the tragedy of the unapologetic life. The very defense mechanism they use to protect themselves from abandonment is the thing that guarantees their eventual isolation. They are constantly running from a perceived threat that they are, in fact, creating. They remain alone inside their fortress of perfection. The true path to healing here is not about learning the social script of sorry. It is about a fundamental shift in the definition of strength. It is about moving from the brittle ego, where fault equals annihilation, to a resilient self, where fault is simply data that can be absorbed and utilized. The greatest strength is not being right all the time. The greatest strength is the quiet, unshakable courage to look at your own flaw and say, I did that and I will fix it. When you fully own the mistake, you reclaim your power. When you deny the mistake, you surrender your power to fate, to others, or to circumstance. The work is to create an internal space where imperfection is allowed to exist without triggering the panic of being abandoned. It's the work of finally giving that young, scared part of yourself the one thing it never received: unconditional acceptance. The first step isn't an external apology, it is an internal apology. It is the moment you turn to that part of yourself, the scared, defensive, perfectionist part, and you say, you are safe now. You are worthy of love, even when you are messy. You are worthy of staying, even when you are wrong. I will not abandon you. This is the gentle, terrifying work of letting your worth be unearned. The next time that defensive spike rises, that urge to intellectualize, deflect, or blame, try this simply. Take a breath, count to 10, and in that space, remind yourself that the structure of your life will not collapse. You are not a child anymore. You are the adult now, and you are the one who is in charge of your own safety. You can lower the shield. You can let the word out. Because the person who can apologize is the person who has achieved a deep, honest self-respect. They are strong enough to carry the truth of their own imperfection because they know that their worth is not up for negotiation. You stop confusing defensiveness with strength. You stop mistaking denial for safety. You stop running from the truth that you are flawed, and you start embracing the truth that your worth is absolute. You never had the courage to be wrong, but you still have a future. And this time, you get to write it by choosing to be simply, fully human.